Here we go. Here we are, Alan. Live. We've never done this before.
This is the first. This will be interesting.
We've done these
We're
top
up.
10
We're up to
shows.
1984, the much anticipated year of 1984.
Yes.
So what we've been doing is looking back in the day when we were much younger with a lot more hair, and we've decided to, break it down to the top 10 albums starting in the early 80s, and we worked our way through to today, which is 1984. And Jim and I, since it's our show,
we do whatever
and we're getting into the crust of the metal years, we've expanded it to our top 20 albums because we just couldn't narrow it down to 10.
Exactly.
So Jim will have some of his picks. I'll have some of mine. We'll have some that are unanimous. But let's preface this with, that's a big word. I preface this by saying, look, back at this time, if you had a Marshall amp and a distortion pedal, you were lumped into heavy metal. Plus, heavy metal was in all the magazines, Hit Parader, Circus. So even Kiss, who came out with Animalize, is like, yes, this is our best metal album ever. And it's like, until then, you were playing disco. So how come you're a metal band all of a sudden? Ted Nugent was like, oh, this is my heaviest album by far.
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody was jumping on to the heavy metal bandwagon. So I just want to throw that out because we're going back as if we're in the day. And so some bands, which we might consider now hard rock, and we should have considered at the time hard rock as well, were lumped in to heavy metal. And that's why we've included them or did not include them here today.
All right. So I just want everybody to calm down. If we didn't name your band, we didn't name your favorite album.
This was hard because we're getting in.
I'm going to tell everybody, this is a two-parter. This is part one because we couldn't fit it all into part, we're not going to talk here all night. So it's a two-parter, and this is what it was. It was a little bit of me and Alan. It was a little bit of what it was like back in the day, and have these albums today aged well. So that's what it was. It was a combination. Me and Alan going back and forth all week.
You made it too complicated.
It was too complicated. We're going back and forth. Should we do this one? Should we do that one? Should we throw this one out there? But here we go. Here, you ready for it, Alan?
One thing we didn't do, so we had Raven live at the Inferno, one of my favorite live albums of all time. Yeah. Motorhead, No Remorse, double album. Anything that was kind of greatest hit stuff, we moved aside. So I just named two fantastic albums you should check out. They didn't make the list. We said, hey, this is hard enough. We're not doing live albums and greatest hits kind of thing.
Because it doesn't count. It's a studio album. It's new material. If you put a live album with all the greatest songs on the live album, then it's really not, something that can be measured.
So this will take us back to the day. We'll try to relive it as we lived it the first time.
All right, here we go. Number 20. And I don't have any funky music, anything like that. We're using physical product.
Look at this.
There it is.
Vinyl.
W.A.S.P. 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 It came out August 17th, 1984.
The first W.A.S.P. album.
Look at that. So
for myself, I mean, you can if you want to start, but for myself, I was more into the jeans and leather than this, makeup and Alice Cooper's. I love Alice Cooper, but these guys are all a copy of him. You can't mess with the original. So, like this, W.A.S.P., their first single, F Like a Beast, and Drinking Blood. And you're like, this is that LA scene. I was much more into the New York scene at the time. So I didn't I liked, the first single off of there, which I Want to Be Somebody. I love that song.
Loved it.
So back in the day, this was an album I didn't buy. I listened to it at a friend's house. I kind of liked it. But now, so we're going to skip forward. I got, about 15 different W.A.S.P. albums because I just love Blackie Lawless. So I enjoy W.A.S.P. much better as I progressed and got older than I did when this actually came out. Regardless, it made our top 20 from 1984.
Here's my 2 cents. F Like a Beast was released on another album, like as a single or an EP, right back in the day.
That cod piece with the saw, the circular saw going through.
And I was like, yeah, I really dug this song. And then I picked up the album, and the highlight for me was I Want to Be Somebody, and that was a video. And
L-O-V-E.
And Love Machine.
Come on, that's a great song.
Look, to me, Chris Holmes He's not in the band anymore, but I think there is something missing there today that there is not in the band. Even though I do like the epicness of W.A.S.P today, I think there is a certain guitar sound that's missing, but it's there. It's there. And yeah, I dig the album. And that's all I gotta say. It's a good album.
Sleeping in the Fire, The Flame, The School Days, and again, Tony Richards, his only playing drums on the only W.A.S.P album. He was deemed too crazy for the band. So of course, Blackie had been around forever. He started a band sister in L.A. Nikki Sixx was in the band with him. Yeah. He used to be Blackie that lit himself on fire every night.
Yes.
Or letting Nick do it.
And later on, the flaming codpiece.
Blackie Lawless was around for a long time before this album. He knew what he wanted to do, and marketing geniuses, right? I mean, these guys were considered like Satan incarnate. You know, they were coming out of LA. Of course, all the media was there. So, you know, we vaguely heard of Venom. But W.A.S.P, everybody knows these guys are sick MFs, you know.
Yeah. You know, the meat. Remember the meat? You were tossing raw meat into the audience and the blood. So that was back in the day.
We never planned that. It just became part of our show.
We just happened to have like a roast beef and back on the stage. So funny because we just throw it in there.
I found all my old Hit Parader and Circus magazines from '84. They actually had an interview with Blackie upon the release of this, and he's like, that was just part of the show. We didn't really think that out. It seemed like a good thing to do at a time to throw raw meat into the crowd.
All right. So, you know what? Let's make this a little more interactive. Okay, you and I, we threw out our thoughts on on number 20. We're not going to do all 10 today. We're not going to do all 20 today. We're going to do 10 and 10.
No, we can't do 10.
I want some opinions from everybody else out there, and I'll read them, and we'll go through the list, and we'll do it all together as a fun group.
Yeah, we don't want this to be a 5-hour show either, so we'll just try our best to get everybody's comments in. So
agreed. Klaus is saying agreed upon W.A.S.P debut. Jason saying hi from the UK. It was the same with W.A.S.P. I thought they're okay, I guess. And Lucia is saying my list 20 to 11. TNT Knights of the New Thunder. We'll get into all that later on. Klaus saying hi. Jason, sorry I thought W.A.S.P had no substance, but appreciated them later on. Hi, Jim, my man. Okay, it's good. And Manowar, Hail to England. Okay, Ratt out of the Cellar. Now people are naming all their albums, but this is our number 20. If you have anything to say about W.A.S.P, throw it out there. Those were our thoughts on W.A.S.P. Let's move on to number 19.
Great. A few of those were great to hear. But again, we had enough problems trying to get it down to 20. So some of those that you named are fantastic albums. Jim, if you would permit me,
Go ahead. I permit you.
He would let me put these two on the list. I want to throw it out right now. Fastway, All Fired Up, and Great White's first album. Those are two that didn't make the list, but they were
at 22. That's what you're saying. We're at 22. So we're at 22.
24 with Live in Inferno and No Remorse Motorhead. All right, after 24.
All right. Latin is saying, I think W.A.S.P were great, wishing I had all their albums. But their debut is, and the name W.A.S.P is, Rick Fox, who was playing with W.A.S.P before they became W.A.S.P as we know it, said that he was the one who sort of gave the idea to Blackie to name the band. So there's a little bit of tidbit there. Throw it out.
I actually think the second album is stronger. The Last Command. I think it's a stronger album. But this is a great debut. And back in the day, I Want to Be Somebody. I mean, you know that Blackie believed every word.
I love that song. And back then,
Alan, it was a huge song.
And as a teenager, it really connected with me. Today, maybe less so because I'm already past somebody, right? But as a teenager, I wanted to be somebody. I was a 16-year-old or 15-year-old. I wanted to be somebody. And it really, it connected with me as a teenager.
I think the image overshadowed the actual quality of the album. If you didn't go for that kind of image, you didn't really pay too much attention to the album. I'll leave it at that.
All right, here we go. So number 19. Do you have it in front of you? There it is. Oh, there it is. Fist.
The original Mega Force. Before they signed under the big label, Banzai. There we go.
Stock, available.
Our friend Neil.
Neil Turbin.
Neil Turbin.
I think it's an important album, and I'll tell you why. Because
terrible album cover.
Because out of the big four, we'll call it, and Anthrax was one of them. It's probably one of the best vocal delivery debut. Right? You have, Megadeth, and, you have Metallica. Yeah, the vocals are kind of like screamo, and you have Slayer, more of aggressive. But Neil was actually doing the power vocals back then, the Halford vocals, we'll call it. And man, oh man, and they were tight and they were intense, and it was thrash. So I think, to me, it's one of my favorite of the big four debuts. What do you think, Alan?
For me, Jim, I read about them. I think it was in Hit Parader. Oh, the East Coast equivalent of Metallica, right?
Yes,
Okay, let's
yes.
check them out, right? And like you said, I just finished listening to this before coming on the show, and Neil's, especially on side A, Neil's voice is unbelievable. So I got into it. I know Metal Thrashing Mad was one of my favorites back in the day. Their cover of I'm 18. I'm a huge Alice Cooper fan, so that I like that. The Across the River, kind of a very, you can hear the Maiden influence on that incredibly. And especially, and now we got to speak about Charlie Benante if we're going to talk about this album. I can appreciate Neil's vocals much more today than I did back then. But Charlie Benante, I mean, he came out, he was like next to Rob Reiner, probably one of the best metal drummers at that time.
Yeah.
So again, a little disappointing the album cover, but it really gets the message across.
No, I like it, Alan. I think it's a great album cover. It sticks out. It's well painted. Or
our buddy John Zazula.
What about Soldiers of Metal? What a song! When I first heard that song, incredible. There was nothing
Death
like
from
it.
Above was Death Rider, Death from Above.
Oh yeah, Death from
Other
Above.
classics.
Wow.
And funnily enough, or oddly enough, that's the only Anthrax album I bought all the way up to Worship Music.
Well, you know what? Here's an interesting thing about me, and I've said this before, that after Neil departed from the band, I kind of wasn't interested until John Bush entered the band. And then I went back to the Joey Belladonna, and I appreciated that stuff. So Neil quit. I go, that's it. It's done. No more. That's it. I'm through with this band. And it's strange how we became friends later on. We were really.
I enjoyed Spreading the Disease. I liked the I'm the Man EP. That was hilarious. And again, that they found their own niche. How do we separate ourselves from the Slayers and Megadeth and Metallica?
Very well said.
And Scott Ian in his book admitted he loved rap as much as he loved metal. They were on the same level, right? And then you had SOD. So there's a lot. They started doing their own thing. And then you can appreciate them a little bit more because they were really trying to do their own thing. So
yeah. So here we go. Bullet points. Old School says Fistful definitely belongs in our list, I guess. Should be higher. Love the cover. Alan.
Oh, well.
How can you not love that cover, Alan? Klaus is saying, love Fistful. I remember that. I was disappointed in their next release.
6 fingers, first of all.
And there's two. It's the same two left hands.
Scott Ian wrote about it, a whole chapter about that cover in his book. So
yeah. I think, again, I'll say it one more time. After Fistful came out and Neil wasn't in the band anymore, I was like, that's it. Done. Next band. Next. Anyways, there you go.
All right, here we're going to get screamed. There's going to be a lot of screaming going on in our next choice.
All right, here we go. You ready
we'll
for this?
Explain why.
What are we at? We're number,
18.
We're going Canadian here, Alan. Helix, Walking the Razor's Edge. July 7th, 1984.
Let's go back. Hey, when was? I bought this on the 24th of August.
You keep your receipts, I see.
Look, let's put this in the context here. No Rest for the Wicked. These guys were going around a hard rock band. They should not have been called heavy metal, but everybody was getting lumped in, like I said earlier.
Yeah.
No Rest for the Wicked, fantastic album. They did one cover song. This one's got every video was 3 cover songs. They had Rock You was written for them. You had Gimme Gimme Good Lovin' and Make Me Do Anything You Want, A Foot in Cold Water cover their song. So I think Brian Vollmer, when we interviewed him, Jim, he says he's probably still paying for those videos today. Right? But
that's right.
This album, Rock You, you heard that worldwide. It was unbelievable. The videos for Gimme Gimme Good Lovin', they actually did an X-rated version and then an un-X-rated version. So that was very interesting. Make Me Do Anything You Want, a ballet studio, and very, very well done. But, there's no filler. I mean, When the Hammer Falls, Animal House, Young and Reckless. This was a huge album at the time, and that's why it made our list today.
You know what, Alan? It's nice to have Canadian represent there. You know, and again, Rock You was the anthem, like Twisted Sister, like Quiet Riot, you know, sort of that same sort of the big gang or crowd, we'll call it, sing along, right? Rock You was big, especially in North America. I'm not sure about the rest of the world. And it was Bob Halligan Jr. who wrote
Yeah, some
Judas
heads are gonna
Priest. Some
roll.
heads are gonna roll. Yeah, it's just a great. And When the Hammer Falls, another cool song. Give Me Good Lovin'. Yeah, there were like hit after hit after that album, and this was
So
probably
it was a huge album for them. You know, No Rest for the Wicked for me is as far as a superior album, but did not nearly have the success of this one. So
all right. Old
obviously with those three big hit singles, and they were all covers. So I don't know how much money the band actually made off of that. And the videos cost a fortune, so they're very well done.
All right, so Sam Saltman saying, like the Helix album, saw them on this tour, didn't really think it's a metal album either. It's good, but not top 20 good. Alan, I don't know.
Well, you know, it's okay. Hey, no
It's
problem.
okay. It's all right.
We had enough problems
It's
writing
okay.
20.
It's
you know?
okay. It's all right.
We had another
It's
10 albums that
okay.
could have made
It's
it
all
as well.
right.
Exactly.
It's okay. All right, what do we got next? What are we at? 17.
Here
If
we
you
go.
didn't think that last one was a metal album, then this one here.
Rush,
Where is
Grace,
it? Here we go. I
Under
got it
Pressure.
here. I got this one here. Little baby one.
And I mean, you know, Jim, we're listening to you know, a lot of this is debut albums, right? In '84, right? Like you said, W.A.S.P, Anthrax. It's a little unfair to kind of include this one, you know, because this one took them forever to record. Peter Henderson of Supertramp fame was the one that did the producing at our Orient Heights. And I mean, like you can't compare that to Fistful of Metal. You know what I mean? I mean, the musicianship, the writing, the production. I mean, they had the budget, whereas, you know, Anthrax probably didn't. But it's funny to fit it in here. I mean, you had to put a Rush album. You had to put a Rush album.
You gotta like sort of squeeze it in there, Alan. Just gotta squeeze it in there.
Again, for myself, back in the day, they started losing me. I was a late comer to the Rush party. You know, Moving Pictures, Exit Stage Left, Signals, and then the keyboards were getting a lot more prevalent. And that's where I started, you know, looking at other things. Looking back, it's a great album. Not my favorite Rush album, but it merits to be in our top 20. How can a Rush album not make any list, right?
Distant Early Warning was, you know, the nuclear age we were in, right? The little, I guess, was it Geddy Lee's son who was on that little rocket ship flying around? It was somebody's kid. Basically.
Red Sector A.
Red Sector A, After Image. I mean,
reading the articles at the time, Jim, in all these Hit Parader magazine, they're the After Image. That's going to be the huge single off this album, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it was.
Personally, I think it's one of their. I love most Rush albums, and I, you know, there's something raw, new wave, but raw about this album. You know, the production was very raw, but still very progressive and more new wave, I guess. A lot of keyboards. Yeah, there was a little ska in there, and I dig it. I love the album. I know it's not a metal album, but Rush has always been on that borderline, you know. Is Bytorn the Snow Dog metal? You know, is Tom Sawyer metal? Is Body Electric metal? These guys are all over them. Yeah.
At the risk of repeating myself, you know, Night Ranger was lumped in with Zebra. Was lumped in with metal, you know. So like I said, it was record companies, whatever's popular at the time, they're going to duplicate the formula. You know, Dishwalla, Pearl Jam, right? Hey, Pearl Jam, they got a band that sounds like them, Dishwalla. And then you got, you know, everybody. Let's promote them this way because that's what's popular.
Yeah. So here we go. So someone, you know, I'm saying Malice was not. All Joshua was saying, I'll forgive Helix and Rush if Malice makes it. But then Sam goes, it's an 85 album. So,
phew.
Grace.
Demon.
John is saying,
I'll trade you a Demon for a Malice.
John is saying, Grace is a favorite of mine, but not metal. Yeah, it's debatable. It's on that thin line. I mean, it's not metal, but what was metal back in 1984, right?
Jethro Tull, apparently, because they won the Grammy for Best Metal Album.
That's right. All right, here we go. Now we're going. Now we're getting into this. Here we go.
Here's a band I saw open.
Together, Alan. Together. 1, 2, 3. There we go.
Out of the Connie Kitten of Whitesnake video fame, dating Robin Crosby at the time.
There we go.
So I saw them open for Ozzy in April 27th of 84, Jim. I think you were there too. We didn't even know each other.
Yeah.
And again, a great show. Not one of my favorite bands, but this album was huge. I mean, you had videos for Wanted Man, Round and Round, Lack of Communications, another hit off of that. Back for More was huge, right?
Yeah.
So coming out of LA, dressed as a bunch of pirates, good friends of Motley Crue. They were in a lot of the mags at the time. And for me, they were like the start of, one of the start of the hair metals was really, some of the looks were a little bit more important than the actual quality of the album.
Yeah.
Juan, I loved them opening for Ozzy. I thought they did a great job, but not a fan. I didn't buy this album until decades and decades later.
Actually, strange enough, Alan, I bought it before they actually became popular. I saw Round and Round as when it was first released as a video. It did not take off. And then as soon as the video was released, at least in Canada and Montreal, then they toured with Ozzy, and there was people were like sitting like this, waiting for Ozzy. There really wasn't
a great job. That's one of their
and by the end of the show, everybody was sort of like cheering them on, like they kind of worked the crowd, if you want to say, right?
That's one of the bands. Look, I don't remember Helix opening for Triumph at all. I saw Bon Jovi open for Judas Priest during the Turbo Tour. I don't remember it all, but I remember Ratt opening for Ozzy on Bark of the Moon. I remember Great White opening for Judas Priest and Defenders of the Faith. So they must have done something right.
I can tell you, I was sitting fifth row orchestra for Ozzy, and it was loud. It was friggin' loud. And I could see like the first 10 rows or even like first 15 rows on the orchestra section. People were just sitting down, kind of like, okay, Ratt. They didn't know the band. They didn't really know, at least not in Montreal. They didn't really know.
No. It literally just came out.
It came out, and yeah, they won them over. They won the crowd over. But of course, when Ozzy hit the stage, that was another story. But yeah, they won him over. And this is like album full of hits. And not only were they sort of this glam sort of sound, but they had the guitar, man. They had Warren DeMartini. He was like just up there, with the great guitar.
Ron Crucier from Dokken. He was on the Dokken's first album.
Yeah. Juan. And you know what? I didn't even realize this. Like only years later, like a lack of communication. The bridge. It's Juan who's singing, It's Juan.
He just kept jumping up all night. He kept, playing guitar and kicking up in the air like David Lee Roth, but with the bass guitar.
Yeah, the moves. All right, let's go to some quick bullet points here. John saying, I always thought Ratt was one of the better bands of the time, and I really dug this album. I think they got overshadowed by their image. Let's say they were sort of like jeans and T-shirts. I think they would have had a more, I don't know.
Invasion of Your Privacy had some success. And then I don't know, maybe they were having too much fun. I mean, Robin Crosby unfortunately landed up passing away.
Yeah.
So maybe the quality and the drug addiction and some substance abuse kind of took over.
Yeah.
But I agree. They were right there, as big as anybody at that time, for sure.
That album, they had the chops. They definitely had the chops. And Stephen Pearcy, he didn't have the best voice, but he had the tone, that original tone. Like you go, that's Ratt, that's Ratt. He just had that voice, that sound.
They were a Judas Priest cover band when I could never hear it. Now I can hear his voice sound a little bit like Rob Halford.
Yeah.
On the majority of songs, Rob Halford can sing anything. I mean, he's got such a varied voice. So I see the similarity much closer now than I did back then. So.
Lantern is saying, love Ratt too, but agree that the EP is better. Invasion, Privacy was also better. Some filler on this. I think the EP
Wanted Man, I love the way they started the album with Wanted Man. The video, they're all in the cowboy gear. And again, MTV being so huge, you had to have a video on there if you want to have success.
And they were at the right place at the right time. So maybe if they would have released the same album 3 years before or 3 years after, it wouldn't have been the same result, right? It's all about timing at the end of the day, right? And they were at the right place.
But we're talking 84, Jim. This is when the momentum, as we said in 83, Quiet Riot set the table. A lot of bands were in the, Iron Maiden and Judas Priest were well established at this time. Def Leppard as well. Yeah. Pyromania sold a gazillion copies. So now we're coming. Okay, now it's some of this is bandwagon stuff, maybe, but we try to filter that out here today.
Yep.
But we're going with and Ratt was I was thinking it's fairly original at the time. So.
I agree. Stephen Pearcy had that original tone. Let's do it. So here we go. Number 15, released.
I'll let you take. You can take care of the whole thing, Jim.
Released May 10th, 1984. Here it is. Stay Hungry. A lot of people will say this wasn't metal. Here we are. Here's a band that started off more hard rock metal. You know, their first two albums. The third album comes out. It still has that metal vibe, but it has become more anthemic, shall we say. And they were definitely the video, I wouldn't know if of pioneers, but they actually said, you know what, if you take a video and you put a little humor into it, you can have a massive hit. And well, they did have a very catchy song too, right?
Well, Dee said it was a Bugs Bunny, right? It was the Roadrunner Coyote, those videos, right?
Yeah. I mean, anywhere you went, you would hear, we're not going to take it. To this day, you hear, we're not going to take it.
I want to rock.
I want to rock, banging their head against the locker.
But for me, Jim, see, like, again, right? This is New York. Burn in hell. New York, but I never got into this kind of look, okay? It wasn't my thing. But Dee Snider still has the coolest hair in rock, okay?
Yeah.
And his voice, I still love to this day.
Me too.
So for me, what turned me on to them was the song The Price. And honestly, I was guilty, as Dee said in his book, Shut Up and Give Me the Mic. I was guilty of, what is this? You know, this is some teeny bopper. This is for 10-year-olds. This is like a Kiss for 10-year-olds is what I thought at the time. You know?
Yeah.
I wasn't into that kind of glam look by any means. Saying that, looking back now, picking this up like 30 years after it came out, I enjoy this album. I think it's a great album.
Yeah, I agree. Looking back at this album, I would like it if it was remixed and remastered, because I find that the production didn't hold up as well over the years than when it was first released. But the tracks are Stay Hungry, We're Not Gonna Take It, Burn in Hell, Howdy, Captain Howdy, and I want to rock, The Price, Don't Let Me Down, The Beast, and SMF. It's a freaking good album, man. It's a friggin' good album. It holds up well. The songs hold up well. I think the production doesn't hold up as well. I would love to see it, a remix or a remaster, a proper one done of this.
But if you're talking about that year, and even though I fought you on this selection, it has to be included because
I agree.
It was just such a huge album out after years, decades of obscurity.
Yeah,
I mean, this made them stars. It's so sad to say, overnight sensation after all those years of putting in the hard time in the bars, but it was. So,
okay, you ready for the next one, Alan? Okay, comments on Twisted Sister. Everybody, what do you want to do with your life?
Are you going to comments or going to the next one?
Let's go to comments. What do you want to do with your life? I want to rock. That video. Great album. The only downside is the weak pop metal production, and that's kind of what my point was.
They didn't want him as a producer,
songs, right? Yeah.
Tom Werman, they didn't want him. Dee fought not to have him. I was rereading his book recently, and he thought he was the biggest detriment to the album was the production. It was the producer.
Yeah. Anyways, I guess after years and years of struggling in the tri-state area, they finally broke and trying to get a record deal, right? The first album, Under the Blade, was independent.
UK. Yeah.
And then the second one, in the UK. There you go. That's it. And then, of course, what was You Can't
Stop Rock and
Roll. And, and, they broke. They broke big time. They broke.
Huge. Perfect time. The videos, of course, timing. The videos helped push that through so much.
Yeah. All right, here we go. You ready for this?
I'm ready. You ready?
Tooth and nail.
It made one of our top 10 worst album covers of all time.
What is that, Alan? What is that? Explain to me what that picture is.
I love the logo, but I don't understand. Now, I'm glad to say this was the album just before the Hairspray became more important than the actual riffs and the music. So they're still, after the first album, we got our feet wet with Breaking the Chains, Paris is Burning. Now comes the second album, and Alone Again was a huge video, but you got tons of great songs on this. Just Got Lucky, Heart with Heart, When Heaven Comes Down, Don't Close Your Eyes. That was another big one off of that album. So again, and George Lynch was becoming the rock guitar god.
Student of Randy Rhoads, a student who went to Masonia, a student of Randy Rhoads. I agree. The first time,
Tooth and nail.
my first exposure to the band was, I think it was the video for Just Got Lucky. And when I heard George's Lynch get his guitar tone and the way he was playing, I was like, oh, whoa, this is something else. And of course, Don Dokken, the incredible vocals back then, right? Jeff Pilson.
Again, second album, right? So the first album got our feet wet, and I got a shout out to my buddy Mark, man. He was the biggest Dokken fan. I think he still is, and he's the reason why we all got into Dokken. Was definitely Mark.
Yeah. All right, there you go, Mark. Big shout out. Okay, here we go. Oh, comments, Dokken. Bullet points. Here we go. Lucha saying, Back for the Attack is Dokken's best album, but Tooth and Nail is pretty good as well.
Yeah.
Agreed. Somewhat ironically. Oh, that's Twisted Sister. So, oh yeah. Okay, here we go. Next one. What do we
Back
got?
for the Attack is also my favorite Dokken album as well. So
Really?
yeah.
Okay, next one. Let's go here. Okay, here
More
it is.
metal.
Here it is. Okay,
Less
probably
hairspray, more metal.
voted. I think it was on our show of best album covers, top 10 best album covers. Here it is.
Oh.
But
we're going there already. Okay.
yeah, we're number. What are we at?
Them Reaper.
What do
See
we
you
at?
in hell, my friend.
Number
See you in hell.
13. Look at that. Again, this is quite controversial because it was released in 1983, but in North America it was released in 1984. They still haven't gotten paid for this album.
Man, Jim.
No moolah. They still haven't gotten paid. Look at this cover.
About vocals.
Look at this album cover.
I know.
The best.
Yeah.
Look at that. Do you have your receipt? You still have your receipt?
The vocals. No, this is actually again. It was Mark that introduced me to this band, and I bought the second and third album. I didn't buy the first until years later, but I loved it. I mean, the vocals. It's just the production, man. You know, it's the only thing that's missing from this album. I mean, Steve Grimmett, who we've interviewed on numerous occasions, is unbelievable vocals on this. You got The Show Must Go On, which is kind of a showstopper. But you listen to Liar, Dead on Arrival, Run for Your Life. That's a speedy one. But See You in Hell, just the scream at the end.
Yeah, the sustain.
I think there's still some dogs that are barking somewhere 30 years later, 40 years later.
I think I must have asked, or you must ask, Dead on Arrival, do you ever play that live? And I think it's one of the songs he doesn't play live because he starts off so high and he's singing high the whole time. To do it night after night would be very, very difficult. I mean, that's a pretty tough song to sing. But it's great. Dead on Arrival is incredible. See You in Hell.
Great debut. They were very popular. It was kind of an underground album at the time because they didn't have Dokken's looks.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll be quite honest.
Beavis and
They'll
Butthead.
be the first ones to admit it. So it's like, can we do anything not to show the band, But underground and true metal heads really appreciated this album at the time. And it became kind of like Metallica, It was an underground thing. We really enjoyed it. We didn't want it to get out there and too popular, Because you see in the videos for later albums where Steve's got his hair, way up to here.
Oh, yes. Does he have it here? What does his hair look like here? Oh, there's his
That's
hair.
what I love about the first album. Plus, they could never keep a bass player or a drummer. That was something.
I think I must have bought this album maybe reading some magazine and seeing the picture, right? I had no idea because they didn't play on the radio. There was no video for this, right? So it was strictly on a piece written in a magazine and the picture itself that sold me the album. And I put it on. I was like, oh, wait a second. Now we're talking. I love this album. To this day, I think it has stood the test of time. Yeah, the production's a little weak, but I think it adds to the charm of the album. You go with that?
I agree.
Okay. Right there, Alan. An 83/84 release. We are off to the races. Comments, please. Any comments? Bullet points. Boom, boom, boom. It was always advertised in Metal Forces with Savage. Oh, now we're going back to Dokken. Dokken, one of the very few perfect bands, not a weak member, all fantastic musicians.
Oh,
way too low. TNT should be in the top 10. We're not getting there yet. Old school was just Sam. I like
big Tony Hartnell fan, apparently.
Yeah, I like Grim Reaper then, but it hasn't stood the test of time for me. Not top 20 for me, just my opinion.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah. And Third Fish is saying, many say Steve Grimmett of Grim Reaper should have gotten the maiden job after Bruce Dickinson left. He was British. He had the chops, and I agree. He should have got the job. What happened?
Yeah, that
What
would have been
happened? What
interesting.
happened?
Yeah.
What happened? What happened? All right, here we go. And Klaus is saying, I totally bought it because of the cover, but love the music still. I feel the same way. All right, let's move on, Alan.
Liar.
All right, here we are. We have actually two left. We have number 12 and we have number 13.
All right. This is 12 is Jim's personal favorite, and number 11 is my personal favorite. So
All right. All right, you ready for this? Okay. See, we don't have any graphics today. It's all physical graphics. Released in September 7th, 1984. Man, when I first saw this album cover, holy moly, look at that. And then I turned it on the other side and go, what are these guys doing? Why are these upside down crosses there? And who's this character?
Satan.
And who's this character named King Diamond? Who is this guy? But actually, I had Melissa before this. A Dangerous Meeting, probably one of my favorite all-time Mercyful Fate songs. Nightmare, Desecration of Souls. I would have put this higher, okay? I'm going to tell everybody. First of all, this is probably one of my favorite albums in 1984. Definitely in the top 5. But I think it wasn't as popular as it is today back then. Back then, it was considered an amazing album. The band even broke up after this album. It's more loved today than it is back then, and that's why it wasn't higher on the list. I just kind of looked at the overall perspective. For me personally, yes, it's up there in the top 5, but I think just from a metal perspective, it's on the list, just not as high, because it didn't do as well at the time, but has aged very well. Like Demon Blood, it ages well.
Well, for myself, Jim, we used to go down to the record stores 2 or 3 times a week, and funds were limited, man.
Yeah, to say
we
the least.
saved all week long to go, and now we walk into a record store, you got about 40 metal albums you wanted to buy, right?
Yeah.
So for me, Mercyful Fate kind of fell by the wayside. I just didn't have the funds. A few other bands. I mean, Halloween, one of my favorite bands. I liked their early stuff. Never had the funds to buy it. I ended up getting all their CDs and their whole collection 30 years later. When I had a little bit more fluidity in the old wallet.
Yeah, newspaper route.
So yeah,
it's a strange thing about King Diamond, because the reason for his success is his voice, and the reason they never became this Black Sabbath band was because of his voice. So it was a blessing and
a curse.
A curse at the same time, to say the least. And here we go, old school saying, you sell your soul to buy Halloween if you had to. Come to the Sabbath. Indeed, definitely top 20. Classic and still sounds great. A Dangerous Meeting will always be my favorite tune. And King Diamond told me about this album. He goes, was it Melissa or this album? He was always trying to put his hands, into guys. He always wanted to be part of the production, and he felt like he was being pushed back. Probably more so on Melissa than it wasn't. Not too many. It was recorded in just a few weeks. It wasn't recorded over a period of 2-3 years. Like most of our favorite metal albums, right, Alan? They're recorded lickety split.
Well, I mean, and again, how do these guys weren't getting played on the radio, so how would you find out about them? Cool album covers, number one. I would say we chose it on the cool album covers. Look at this. Then the word of mouth, a friend of a friend, hey, you got to check this out. And then some of the mags at the time, but Mercyful Fate, I've just read all this, my hit paraders from '84. They've never been mentioned.
Yeah.
So so they were that very underground, coming from Europe as well, and
Denmark.
And if you did discover them, then you had the voice that you had to kind of love, accept or not. So the music was very interesting. That I remember.
Very doom. So here we go. Here's the last one. This is number 11.
Oh, guys.
Here we go. All right, you gotta have a build up there, Alan.
Loudness, Disillusion. That's all you have to say. Loudness, Disillusion. By far their best album.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get Jimmy to have my enthusiasm all week, because the drums, the guitar, Akira Takasaki. I mean, I'll throw it out there. Exploder, his guitar solo is better than Eruption from Van Halen. Put your comments in, blow up the internet. I'm saying Exploder is a better guitar solo than Eruption. My opinion. What a great song. The last song, Ares Lament, was re-released in Lightning Strikes as So Lonely. But this is before they got to LA, okay? This is their last really great album as far as I'm concerned. The drums, the bass, Butterfly is my personal favorite. Just that break. Dum 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 dum. You got that riding beat like Maiden so famous for, right? Just that break on Butterfly is worth the whole album. Yeah. Introduced to me my friend Craig, and it was an instant favorite. And I'm listening to it all these years later, right? And it's still one of my favorites. And I had to fight. Jim wouldn't let me put it in the top 10, but like Jim, just like Mercyful Fate, I'd put it definitely in the top 5 easily. So there we go. From Loudness.
Do you prefer the Japanese version or the English version?
I have the English version. I have Japanese versions of their previous albums, A Birthday's Eve, and Devil Soldier, even Akira Takasaki's solo album. But this is the English version. At times, it's very hard to tell it's the English version.
Yeah.
But it's a far cry from MZA. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
MZA.
I kind of like.
So there you go. This is like the Van Halen, man, of Japan. You know.
I don't know. Like I never liked that term, Alan. I never liked it because I think they were completely different from Van Halen. Yeah, I get the guitar, but they were, I don't know.
The drums, the bass, everything. I mean, you know, they didn't have the front man, but I mean, the vocals are good.
Minoru was pretty good. I love Loudness, and especially the last few albums. I love Loudness. I do like the MZA, but Disillusion is definitely one of their best. Definitely one of their best.
So there we have it.
Crazy Doctor. All right, there we have it. Okay.
This you talked about earlier, Jim, about albums that are holding up today.
Yeah.
There's one that is just as good today. Look at that beautiful album cover.
Look at that.
Just as well produced and great today as it did when it was released. So
yeah. All right, here we go. Thunder East was great too. They blew Van Halen away in 1984. Metal Forces was the metal mag, I guess, that had Mercyful Fate. Any other questions or any other comments? And also, rest in peace, Pete Way. Right, Alan? I mean, he passed away.
Yes,
just might as well throw that in there, you know.
I saw Wasted open up for one of the bands back in the day. And yeah, great guy. Great friends of Twisted Sister and Motorhead and you know, just a sad news to read about that this week. So Pete Way, hats off to you, and you're probably with Lemmy having a few pints right now. So
there you have it. Okay, so we've done 20 to 11. We're stopping here. We're putting it on pause. We will come back live and we'll do the top 10. What is it going to be? This is very difficult. This is very, very difficult. This was almost scientific in a way.
There's a little bit more unanimous choices in the top. A lot
of arguments, a lot of back and forth, a lot of emails, a lot of arguing on the phone. What's going on, Alan? No, I can't. Fastway, yes, no. What are we going to do, Alan? What are we going to do?
Fastway, all fired up. All fired up.
All right, guys. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Leave your comments. Tell us your top 20 or top 10.
Tell us your top.
Or top 5 or top 100.
We'll be happy to check them out.
So we know again.
TNT made somebody's list there.
Yeah. So again, this is a little bit of us. This is a little bit of the era, and this is a little bit have these albums aged over time well or not. All right, Alan.
Okay.
See everybody later. Bye.
See you on the next part 2 of the top 84 albums.
All right. 84 albums. Jeez.